Live coverage of BR6 Friday night, joined at the desk here by Gio and Ollie. We are gearing up for our next matchup, this one between INTZ and W7M. These are two teams that fortune has kind of eluded, to be honest, during our stage plays so far. These are two teams that are looking to consolidate the successes that they've had, where they've been able to find them. And maybe this last match between the two of them, while it's not going to put either of them into the LATAM League finals, is a way to at least steady the ship somewhat. Before we get into the map bans and talking about these teams in greater depth, let's hear from the players, get some perspective heading into this match.
Time da W7M. Ó, apenas o Vitz agora, sozinho. Tá deitadinho, o Vitz ainda não sabe. No ponto fraco agora. Tá impossível. Pode fazer a chave mestra para quebrar.
Confronto contra a INTZ, a gente realmente não esperava a derrota, né? Eles não vinham num momento muito bom, mas também a gente ficou numa má fase no decorrer do campeonato. Isso pesou pra gente, o clima do time não estava dos melhores, né? Mas pra esse split vai ser diferente.
Pô, foi um jogo tranquilo, a gente já esperava, a gente sempre já tá acostumado a jogar contra eles. Geralmente a gente sabe que é bem mais tranquilo jogos com eles, a gente projeta bem o que eles vão fazer no mapa. Vai ser um jogo bem tranquilo também, pra ser sincero. Então a gente vamos ver como vai estar o estilo de jogo deles, mas não acho que vai surpreender muita gente, não.
Acredito que vai ser um jogo tranquilo, não vamos ter muita dificuldade. Agora a gente tá com uma line um pouco mais inteligente, que pensa um pouco mais, acho que vai ser vitória.
Those are the two teams, of course, towards the end of the table here, at the moment sitting in 8th and 10th, respectively. Let's talk about the map on which we might be playing here. Gio, at the late stage of this stage, I guess, what might be going through these teams' minds as they select where this battle is going to take place?
Well, as was kind of noted yesterday, W7M have a really limited map pool, and I think if you're them, you're probably going to want to either go to Oregon, Chalet, or Consulate. But if you have a look at what INTZ typically like to go to, then really Oregon's the only one that fits them there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Consulate's been taken out there by INTZ, and Chalet, yeah, finally. So yeah, Oregon. Okay, that's where we're going to be going. So it's another one of those really standard maps, which I wouldn't be surprised if we see quite a few of today.
Yeah, look, with teams perhaps not wanting to take risks, not wanting to go out on a limb, you can expect stuff like Oregon, expect stuff like Clubhouse. These, what are we calling them? Default maps, neutral maps? I don't know the best term to use, but these are the ones that are a little more played out. Ollie, let's talk about this map and also the way that it's going to be approached here by INTZ as a team that, again, is probably looking to try to find some momentum.
Yeah, I mean, INTZ have seen some success on this map, so it is somewhere that they are very capable of playing. I would favour INTZ going into this one, especially given recent performances based on the last couple of days. Obviously, INTZ, they're riding the highs of life right now, having beaten NIP 7-2 yesterday on Villa. W7M obviously suffering a loss yesterday. Another game where they're not coming away with any points, and that was the same story on Friday. So really, for me, I think the momentum is going to be in the hands of INTZ. They're going to want to go out on a high, and typically we do see them play quite well toward the end of a stage. So I would honestly expect INTZ to be sort of favourites coming into this one. In terms of sort of players and who's to really look out for, Hornetow is a player that, whilst his stats only indicate that he's sort of going neutral, sitting just under a 1 rating, he's a player that has a big impact. And alongside Drunks, who has stepped up this season for INTZ, I think between them, they can cause quite a nuisance. But again, it's going to be two aggressive teams with aggressive playstyles butting heads here on what is relatively a checklist style map. We need to see how that sort of balances out.
Yeah, Hornetow was frying yesterday, for those of you who caught the broadcast. Ridiculous to see INTZ just really get it done against NIP. 7-2 they took down Ninjas in Pajamas yesterday. So riding high off that, as you said, Ollie. Gio, let's move now and talk about W7M languishing at the bottom of the table. They've had a bit of a spotty record recently. Maybe going to try to pull something together here and end this stage on something of a high note for them.
Yeah, I mean, W7M, they went against Furia on Chalet yesterday, which was a bit of a peculiar decision, and it didn't really work out for them that much at all. I mean, one of the really strange things we noticed, they weren't really using nades that much. This is a team that really likes to use nades. They also weren't really using hard breach a ton either, so there were some really odd decisions being made by W7M yesterday. And while we've certainly seen some better play from them on previous weeks and previous days, if they want to try and haul themselves off of that bottom spot, then they need to pull it out in this game.
Looks like we're ready to get underway now with our next match. Match number 2 of the 5 you'll be seeing today. Let's head down to the map. It's off to Oregon for INTZ playing against W7M with your casters, Gio and Ollie.
Well, everybody, welcome to game number 2 here tonight. INTZ versus W7M. Usually at this point, we'd be thinking, you know, we're on our way to being halfway through, but we are not. We got 5 games here tonight. We are here for the long haul, and we're ready to get stuck into a bit of LATAM lunacy. INTZ versus W7M. Thatcher first to be removed here on Oregon. Will be followed up by a Maverick. Not too much of a surprise. Defense, maybe, where we're going to see a little bit of target banning coming out.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same story yesterday. Maverick got target banned against W7M. I think that you would probably find more use of a Maverick on Oregon than you would on Chalet, so it could end up being a much more meaningful ban, holistically, in this game. Kaid is going to be the next one going out for the side of INTZ, leaving W7M to ban. I guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out next time. Elevator music.
That's not elevator music.
Well, it should have been.
Oh. You're not a true fan. Isn't that like Jeopardy or something?
I'm a fan of the elevator music, I'll be honest. Nice and relaxing. A Cade and a Wamai. They're going to be the final 2. Wamai kind of not necessarily a strange one, but just like, okay, you want to get rid of a Wamai. Cade, there, obviously we can understand the initial reasons for that. The thing that I like about this lineup, Gio, is that it includes a Flores.
Oh, it's like when we think back to the first day of the stage and we got all excited to see a Flores on Oregon, and now it's come full circle.
Get out of town. Vitz.
Oh no.
Hopes and dreams have been dashed.
I'm sorry.
Well, that happened, doesn't it? Like, that's a thing. I'm sure we'll get to see a little bit of Flores at some point. We've got to. It simply must happen.
I agree. Now, one of the things that I'm really interested to hear is, as you kind of mentioned, the Wamai ban might not be the most obvious. It might not be the biggest ban, but we know that particularly when defending this site, Wamai can be incredibly useful when defending onto Attic. And a lot of teams in Brazil have actually taken to attacking Attic these days. So the fact that W7M, you know, they banned it out, so I suppose they kind of hurt themselves there. I guess they weren't necessarily planning it. But I am interested to see that if there is a lot of Attic push, then will that be a problem? Now, the other side of that you can look at is, well, is there likely to be a lot of Attic pushing given that Maverick's been banned out? So those questions are yet to be answered, but those are 2 operators who you could maybe see influence the way that attacks onto, and defenses as well, of this site in particular are going to change in this game.
Herds is doing Herds things and finding some early aggression. Zach actually going to be the one straight into Armory. Still rocking the R4C on the Ash. Really clutching on to what used to be so popular and powerful. And oh, Panico. Just wiping his brow like it's absolutely nothing. Hits a brilliant C4 there. He's going to be able to take down Zach. Good little start there. Nice little pre-placed. Good prediction and good call.
Really nice. Very clean. Gets rid of Zach nice and early, and even though an Ash might not be the most integral operator, Zach has certainly done a lot of work for INTZ over the last few weeks as an entry fragger, and I think his introduction to the team has been quite meaningful. The nade to be thrown down in through the game's window, but it's not going to find any people. Maybe some utility as you hear it explode in the distance. Oh, okay. What's this? Hornetow and Vitz both getting kills on the window, no less. Maybe this is the way that they're looking to attack into Attic. Forget needing a Maverick. You just kill people on the window and hop right in.
Well, it's something that Hornetow has been doing quite a lot lately, and if he gets the taste of blood inside of this game, I wouldn't be surprised to see him tear away with it. There's still quite a lot of information available externally here for W7M. The Valkyrie cameras have gone undiscovered, and that's going to give a bit of info as to anyone pushing in from that big window. As the clock does tick down, we do have Mav underneath with a C4 as well, so whilst INTZ are in a good position here to start amplifying this push, there is opportunity for W7M to really start to hold on here. GDN just gently peeking into Attic there, going to get away with tossing a Toxic Babe canister out as the Candelas are going to start to come on in. VNX, he's going to be the one to make a bit of an entry, but it's going to be Vitz off the back of the Candelas to find an opening kill on this final execute as the kills do start to fly. Mav finds an exit frag, but it really is only ever going to be that. The final couple of kills come in, and INTZ are going to execute perfectly there, taking round number 1.
It took a bit of brute forcing for INTZ to get themselves into a position where they could access the Kid Storms from multiple angles. You know, as I said, you really need the Attic control for that, rather than just relying on somewhere such as Big Window. But of course, when you're bringing a Ying along, the Candelas are incredibly effective at being able to clear out that position. In fact, a big problem that we see with a lot of teams who fail to plant or fail to win out a round when attacking onto that site is because they simply have been unable to gain control of the Kid Storms, and it gives the defenders a rather nice little refuge from which they can hold angles, prevent any push coming forward, and cut off rotations that attackers want to make. So for INTZ to be able to overcome the obstacles in their way that were preventing them from taking Attic in a more traditional approach, they still got that key part of the map that they needed in order to succeed in their endeavor.
And I guess that's something that you're always going to have the chance of doing if you're bringing something like a Ying. That level of entry that it provides and the disruption and the chaos that it can really start to cause is something that throws things into... The defenders might be in a power position, they might have a lot of utility, but if they can't see, they're not going to be able to do all too much. And that's really what INTZ relied upon there to make that push work. They're going to be approaching the basement this time, though. They're going to be attacking into Laundry. So, W7M sticking to a rotation, not going to give it another go downstairs. This is maybe where you would really like to see the Flores, but if INTZ are just out for a bit of aggression and some really flashy gunfights, then we may just not see that materialize at all, and it could just all be reliant on their ability to burst on into sight and to come away with a ton of kills.
Well, we'll see what it is that INTZ decide to go in for their approach. The fact that they've brought the Ying once again, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they want to be going for a meeting hatch drop. Usually, Candelas are used to facilitate that kind of an attack onto this site. But for now, they're going in for basically a full clear, as many of them look to enter in through the top floor. I don't know how many of these W7M players are actually off-site, though. It looks to me like most, if not all of them, are downstairs, and that does indeed seem to be the case.
Well, let's see. INTZ currently droning out that rear stage and tower area. There hasn't been much indication at the moment as to where the push wants to come. There's a lot of players stacking up inside a freezer. But with the way the freezer wall has been prepped, it could be a little bit ill-advised. There's a mirror window and a nice big angle to peek through. So you're certainly going to want something happening elsewhere to and drive a bit of a distraction there. We could be about to see that with the electrical hatch starting to be opened. Zach going to be making his way down backstairs as well, possibly. It's at least something the Herds to worry about.
getting into the final minute of the round. They've gotten those hatches open, but you can see INTZ actually begin to rotate out. Hertz hasn't been flushed out of pillar whatsoever, so if they do apply any pressure to those back stairs, they're going to really struggle against that. There's the first set of Candelas alongside some smokes too. That's indicating a potential drop. The Toxic Babe canister may look to push them back regardless. Drunks takes a bit of damage as he's kind of peeking down in through Freezer, and Panico's just waiting at the bottom of the laundry stairs for anyone who may dare to approach.
I mean, there's no better place for him to be, but he's got to hit his shot. Zach there, he's going to take him down. The shotgun won't matter, and Zach can just burst his way on through sight. Will eventually be taken down by Guy, but a lot of the damage has been done elsewhere. Vitz and Hornetow coming up with a couple of frags. Herds, he has control of the hatch. He's going to drop his way on through, but drop to his death he shall. Hornetow with the final kill there. He picked up a rook of him in the midst of the chaos. Plank going down as well there by INTZ, just to secure things a little bit firmer.
It really seemed to me like as soon as those first couple of kills were taken, a lot of the players of W7M shifted their positions to react to it, and then you have kills coming in from behind. For example, that final one from Hornetow, who was out towards construction, he got that kill because the defenders within the site actually turned around and weren't necessarily anticipating a push to come in through that direction. So that helped facilitate some of those later kills that INTZ took in that entire engagement, and allowed them to clean up significantly faster. And Herds at the end just didn't really have many options, even though he was in relative safety by playing upstairs. So 2 nice rounds taken by INTZ, where they have very much looked like they hold the control in those rounds. W7M opting to return back downstairs to go to that very same site. Now, this time, INTZ actually haven't teased out the Flores. They've decided to stick with it. Maybe they want W7M to assume that it is yet another 6-pick, when in actuality, they're going to use those drones. Now, I mean, really intrigued to see how that's going to go. They could use it, of course, to remove the shield that GDN is most likely going to place here in elbow. There's not like tons of, I mean, I guess they could use them to get rid of mirror windows and stuff, but there's not tons of utility that's going to be a huge problem for them. I think the thing that maybe would be a risk is the fact that Herds is going to be playing on Warden. So the smoke plant that they're perhaps anticipating, because of course that's what INTZ have gone for in the last round, W7M are looking to be prepared for that.
And the Flores also sees a little bit less value when there isn't a Jaeger being played. Obviously, with YMI being banned, there's no reason why nades can't do all of the jobs, or any sort of throwable for that matter. So it is choice for Vitz to be bringing it out here and now, but see what the intended purpose is for it. As you say, I don't think that there's going to be any significant problem getting rid of any utility. The biggest thing that's going to be slowing them down at the moment, I guess, will be mute jammers, as we see the mute jammer there used on the elevator position inside of laundry to stop the main room or the main entrance hatch being opened. And that's something that maybe can be dealt with a nade or pushed on down. Bit of a Flores drone action if it can get just close enough. Certainly a drone going down now to investigate and just to get a read on what exactly is happening there, but a very cautious round from W7M. They're not looking to try and play too aggressive here. We don't have Herds out on the roam this time. He did move up the back stairs last time, but as the Warden, you just doubt that is going to be the case here. Info now being gathered. Banshee's being destroyed. Herds is going to start to feel the pinch pretty soon.
I mean, he managed to make it pretty far before. He's not feeling too much pressure right now as those Flores drones are being invested elsewhere rather than directly into affecting him. Zach's just trying to peek around with the breach charge. I think he wants to get rid of this Banshee, but he knows that there's someone waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs. He'll have to move back to avoid the C4. But Herds has also got to try and keep an eye on the construction door, because VNX is playing out here, and they're maybe looking to try and secure a crossfire. Wow.
Ooh, there we're going to see the glasses put into action. GDN going to get taken on down there. We do see a flurry of kills start to come through. Guy and Mav going to be the sole survivors on the side of W7M. As very messy take of those back stairs, but it was successful for INTZ, and they've still got a bit of time now to work with. Hornetow has a nade in hand. can try and make something happen with that. The diffuser being recovered. It was left upstairs, so Zach had to make a little bit of an excursion to go and grab that. A plant's going to be required here. It's going to be Zach to try and get this one down. He does have a nitro cell. He's going to toss it on over. It won't actually land, though. Zach is able to come off and actually find himself a kill. VNX there backing him up as well. The clock getting very short on that one.
Really nicely pinched from a number of different angles, I suppose, Ints. And those 2 kills that Zach secured at the end, great. And yeah, I mean, we've had some conversation about whether or not Ashe is super viable right now, especially as Zach has been liking to bring her with the R4C and not the G36. And you know what? He's been doing a good job with it. I mean, especially just a couple of rounds ago when he managed to get the close range kill over a guy who's holding a shotgun in his face. So those 2 kills at the end there, he's been looking very, very clean. So, I mean, obviously we've just had someone drop out the lobby, so we'll wait to see how that goes to bring them back. But it looks like W7M are looking to go to kitchen and dining. So they're going to be heading over to a 3rd site, despite the fact they haven't been able to successfully defend either of their 2 first sites.
And that's got to be a bit of an alarm bell that starts to ring off in the distance when you can't win a defensive round here on Oregon. They've not been able to successfully go anywhere just yet. They're now going to go downstairs into the kitchen, and you wonder what the difference maker is really going to be. And it's not that they've really been lacking anything, and I doubt that it's the bans that are causing too much disruption. You know, a Cade and a YMI ban, sure, it's a hindrance, but you think about what they've got available to them. They've got so much information. They're regularly bringing a Valkyrie. They've got everything they need. They had a ton of C4s in that previous round. There was a lot of opportunity there. INTZ just setting up these very aggressive takes, and they're happy to hang in the scrappy gunfight. And it's a strategy that's paying off for them. Now, this break obviously will take a little bit of momentum out of things. It's Drunks from INTZ that has dropped on out, so we're looking to try and get him back in as soon as possible, but we have been able to pause, so we won't have to hit an entire rehost. But still, W7M needs to try and make something happen here.
W7M have won 1 game of Oregon of late, and it was against MIBR, and it was an 8-7. So don't have a ton of information about how they play here, because the previous games that they've played, you know, for example, they had a loss on Oregon back in the Copa do Brazil, but this was, of course, before Mav and GDN joined the roster. So you kind of got to take that with a pinch of salt, because it's not the same roster whatsoever. So we should be ready to get back into the game. We're going to be seeing a 6-pick come out from Panico as he switches from Melusi over to Clash. And Zach himself watching the Ashe to go to what is now considered the more standard Zafir.
New Ashe.
Yeah.
Really is. We are going to the Clash. I mean, okay. Is that going to be something that helps W7M? If we think about the way that INTZ have been approaching these rounds and how some of the executes have been going down, it's been scrappy, it's been close quarters, it's been happening in the dying few stages. So a Clash could assist that. And depending on where it's played, Panico might be able to keep himself safe. I think my only major concern about playing a Clash downstairs in kitchen would be that there's quite a lot of crossfires that you're going to have to try and contend with. If you're going to try and play in showers, for example, that's a room that is typically on a lot of attackers' lists as a first port of call, somewhere to really try and get in and gain a bit of control, and it's done from multiple angles. Clash's strength is, you know, big shield, human drone, but a weakness is defending herself from crossfires. If you can get the crossfire onto a Clash, you can very regularly bring her down without too much trouble. So I think the where Panico playing is going to be the more important part. In the meantime, it looks as though he's got himself stuck into the bottom of small office, and he's going to try and play in the doorway.
Yeah, he's down in dining, which doesn't surprise me because, you know, when you're attacking onto this site, regardless of whether or not it's the dining wall or the showers wall, oftentimes you'll have attackers who are pushed up towards that wall really closely, and you can already see that Panico has been forced back because it took next to no time for INTZ to breach open the dining wall, and he's not going to get a ton of value by being that close up.
Now comes the question of where does the clash play? It initially looks as though Shower's corridor is going to be somewhere that Panico starts to position himself. With how much progress INTZ have been able to make without committing, by the way, to the building, it is very impressive indeed. Panico already getting caught out inside of these crossfires. Full white flash, and Nade's going to come on through, and he gets chunked down to less than half. Now we can start to continue opening on up into Shower. Zach, aware of Panico's location. Everybody on the side of INTZ is looking to try and deal with this swiftly, while still getting everything else that they need to do done.
He's moved into Showers now. Hertz is going to take some damage as he's looking to pressure down onto the corridor and finds himself in this 1v1 with Vitz. But Hornakatao can just turn the corner. It looks like a lot of kills coming in for INTZ right now as it leaves just Guy on his own.
Poor old Guy. Probably has all the information in the world. He's got a C4, but what is he able to do with it? VNX is going to start planting. Ripping down the barricade. Could give the game away. A nice swing there from Guy. He's going to put some damage into Drunks. The game has been given up, though, and his location is now known. It's going to be a tough old post plant here for him. He has to try and break these engagements down, but he's going to be getting held from multiple angles. Oh, you do just see Zach keeping himself alive there. He has managed to push all the way on through. There's a drone in the middle of the floor. Drunks is the one that's going to be thirsting initially for this final kill, and Drunks is going to be the one to find it. INTZ 4 clean rounds here on Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, clean is the operative word. It took basically no time for them to swarm and overwhelm the team. So much of it really revolved around getting rid of that clash. But as you noted, you know, she was being entirely targeted. Send in those flashes from the Showers corridor window. You send in a nade as well. At best, Panico has to turn around and is forced out of position, but at worst you just get killed, whether it's because you turn around and you expose yourself so that someone can kill you from behind, or you get naded, whatever it might be. You're basically not doing anything useful for the team, and probably not going to make it out alive. So when that was sort of the entire premise of that defense, and of course when you bring a clash, it is to be irritating, it is to slow down an attack and hold them back. At no point did Panico actually succeed in that. In fact, every single time INTZ did something and they took a step forward, it was Panico who found himself taking a step back. If that's your way of defending with Clash, then yeah, I'm not surprised it didn't work.
No real surprise to not see Clash brought this time, and no real surprise to see a site change again, back down to Laundry. It wasn't even that close when we think back to the previous time that W7M defended this, and they've done so twice. So we'll have to see if there's anything that they're going to try and do differently. Initially, the operator lineup looks relatively the same. We do have Herds and Mav who have both switched things up. We've got Herds on the Ella. Typically, you'd see Ella shotgun played on Laundry. Honestly, you wouldn't always see the Scorpion. You think of teams like FaZe, Cyber. He loves playing Ella shotgun downstairs when defending Laundry or defending Bunker all day there with that FO12. But the W7M have got different ideas, and one of them is Mav on the Pulse. Heartbeat scanner going to gather a lot of information. It sort of smacks of the consulate strategy that we saw from W7M come out, where the Pulse and 5 C4s was the order of the day. There isn't, of course, 5 C4s this time, but the premise is the same. Mav's going to try and call out where this push is going to come from.
A lot of droning upstairs. INTZ have kind of done this upstairs clear a couple of times now. And Herds is placed very far up the stairs, I suppose, comparatively to before. He has the Grismont mines this time, so you have that opportunity to stun out players who are looking to push down the tower stairs, which has been a particular point of interest for INTZ. They've always had someone who's trying to pressure that, which, to be honest, not all teams in Brazil do like to do that. So being able to bring the Grismont mines, potentially stun out someone who's pushing down there, take advantage of them, bring them down, suddenly you could be taking down an entire plinth of the attack. There's the C4 from Mav, so he's put his cardiac sensor to good use as he brings down VNX.
First time in a while we've actually seen INTZ come away with an opening kill here. Typically they're not doing too well inside of that engagement. It isn't for long before it gets traded out. Hornetau able to take down Guy. Hornetau player that really is having a standout performance. 9-2 at the moment as he makes his way, or thinks about making his way through Freezer. GDN has the Toxic Babe canisters and can look to try and deny. Grismot Mines are going to give the game away briefly. GDN can peek round and get a Toxic Babe canister out. Zach gets chunked down there. GDN draws for the shotgun. He could see himself with a slew of kills here, and he's going to find 2. That's Diffuser down as well. GDN, what a task, what a job he has been able to achieve there. Dramatically swinging this in W7M's favour. Zach's going to find one back onto Herds, but GDN, look what he can do here. He can just smoke off that Diffuser pretty much for the entirety now. Still has one Toxic Babe canister left. Drunk's locked in holding the angle. Doesn't want to go for the peak, but as time ticks down, he's going to have to try and do something. It's going to be Panico that he's trying to lock in on. But Drunks is allowed to move on through. He's actually going to be able to take down Mav. Now the pressure really is on, as he's looking to aggress on a bit further, but no, he's going to full white blind himself. The shotgun at close range is going to be disastrous here. Drunks, you've got to try and hold on. The plant is going down, but a C4 flies through from Panico. We just about got a glimpse of it in the POV, but there it is. Finally, we see W7M clutch themselves around here.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, but they finally got there. I have to say, it was really good the way that GDN played the position that he was in, because that's a very precarious position to actually try and defend this site, particularly if you have attackers who are pushing in through both Freezer and Laundry, which is what was happening at the time. But GDN being able to take advantage of, well, here we go, here's the replay for it. GDN being able to take advantage of those players who were coming in from Freezer without being killed or punished for it by the angles that could have been held from Laundry, that was actually really big. And, you know, it put INTZ in such a vulnerable spot after that, particularly as the diffuser, of course, got dropped.
Yeah, I think GDN's definitely won the round there for the team. You know, the clutch at the end is always nice, but it would never even have come down to that had it not been for GDN able to lock down that Freezer and really start to provide a lot of value there. We are inside of a pause at the moment, so hence the player cams, but I do believe we're going to be getting underway very shortly indeed. One more round of defense here for W7M. They've got another chance to redeem themselves slightly and walk away from this phase with a 2-4 split. Still, it wouldn't be seen as ideal, especially not for Oregon, especially not for the defense, but they're going to take whatever they can at the moment, as things in this game haven't been going their way entirely. INTZ on a little bit of a tear, looking like they're willing to bring some fresh ideas to the table, and we're seeing that again inside of this round. They've opted for double hard breach here, where previously we've seen them play the Ying. They've instead brought the Capitao, a Hibana and a Thermite. So I'm expecting that same essence, Joe. I'm expecting the same control inside of Attic and moving through games, but this time it's the Capital that's going to be providing the disruption.
Yeah, and to be honest, this could be part of well, actually, excuse me, I was going to say part of the reason why they banned 1Y, but it wasn't INTZ who banned 1Y, it was W7M. So they're using W7M's ban against them, I guess, because a Jaeger isn't going to do anything about it. Only the 1Y discs are going to be able to prevent those incoming projectiles from a Capitao. So they're going to have a lot more of a likelihood of finding value with it. And if you can, I mean, it's like what I was talking about in round number 1. It's about figuring out how to flush those players out, particularly from the kids' dorms. That is such a key area in this site. So in the first round, they did it with Ying Candelas. In this round, they'll probably be looking to do it with the Capitao bolts. And because there are a couple of them, they can use them in different places. They don't just have to do it on the kids' dorms. They could do it into Trophy. They could do it into Pit to force anyone out from Attic, because that, of course, is somewhere that they really need to take control of as well.
Well, Zach's going for his trademark entry in through Armory. We think back to round number 1. There was a pre-placed C4 that was ready to deal with him as he crossed the threshold. I don't think that that's going to be the case this time, as both C4s are still in the pockets of the players that own them. We may be able to get to see what Zach's idea is of an entry through there. Going to be droned on in by Hornetow briefly until the mute jammers take hold. Surrogates as well are going to cause a little bit of a problem here, and it's something the INTZ are going to have to try and deal with. Possibly got some stuns on the Hibana so they can try and work that way, but aside from that, they're going to be struggling. They don't really want to be deploying drones or even smokes to burn through those surrogates.
Next breach to be done on the games room wall. Hornetown sending in the Gemini as well. W7M haven't lost anybody at this point. INTZ have taken control here of Trophy, and because of that breach that's been made through into the Trophy wall, I assume they have control of Attic as well. You can see there's 2 defenders here in Kids Dorms, the area that they lost so crucially back in round number 1. Need to be holding on to this very, very hard. Now, it doesn't look like INTZ have got anybody over on big windows, so for now, Herds is pretty much only got to worry about those angles that are going to be held onto him from Trophy.
So Panico was trying to line something up there, as we do see the utility start to get pushed on through. I'm getting in-depth view here from Panico on what his part is going to be to play inside of this round. Toxic Babe canisters going to be causing a little bit of confusion and control, but ultimately it's going to be Drunks that's causing the damage. VNX is going to be confirming that plan. So we see Mav trying to rotate himself at white, but he will be getting taken out. Vitz going to find the final frag inside of this one. Mav's attempt was valiant, trying to get himself up there. Herds, of course, just hanging out in the side of dormitories pretty much for the entirety of that round, throughout all the action, keeping himself alive just to rotate at the end and see his demise. A 5-1 split there from INTZ. It can only be described as a dominant performance here on Oregon.
It's looking very good. And yesterday, when we had the interview with JP, he said to us, you know, we've just won against NIP, but we don't want to celebrate yet. We have a very important game coming up tomorrow. Playing against W7M, we need those points to push ourselves off the bottom of the pool. Because if you consider where both of these teams are in the leaderboard, W7M are right in 10th spot. INTZ are currently in 8th, but they want to be making as much space between them as possible, because even though they cannot qualify for the Copa Elite 6, looking forward into stage 3, putting those points on the board now is going to be highly integral for them if they're to avoid relegations and actually see some success next stage. So INTZ know how much of a big deal this game is to them, and that's not to say that W7M don't. I would imagine that they are also very aware. But they are having a much harder time at it now. And I'll be totally honest with you, Ollie. It has felt in the last few days, even the last couple of weeks, that W7M have maybe slipped a bit from some of the hope that we saw from them back in the start of the stage.
It really does. I think there was some nice sort of energy about W7M earlier on in the stage, and they came through and they were halfway through and they'd seen a point out of every single game they've played. And now they're on a bit of a streak of losses and they need to start to buck that trend and shake it off. And as we say, it could be called a 6-point game because of the way that these two teams are vying in the bottom half of the table. Winning this head-to-head is going to be pretty big for them when we move through into stage 3 and what that's going to mean. So ultimately for INTZ, they've focused and they've come out and they've got the job done. And it's kind of in contrast, right? Because INTZ tend to finish a stage quite strongly, but they never start the best. So it really is sort of a swings and roundabouts there for these two teams, in that they've maybe not met when both are on tip-top form. But I think the siege that INTZ are playing today, it's going to have always been very difficult for W7M to really get themselves involved. And now they've got arguably the tougher task to do, in that they've got to coordinate on the attack, and it's somewhere where we've had a bit of a question mark over them for the last couple of weeks, really, is that their attacks haven't always seen the necessary coordination.
Well, we'll see if INTZ can keep it up on the defense. the hatch is starting to get opened by W7M. We've got a couple of C4s in play for INTZ as they have both the Mute and a Goyo as well. Ooh. Oh. I always get baited by that. I'm always like, wow, he's jumping straight down. It's a Gemini. I'm just dumb.
Well, it's certainly one way of clearing out the Surrey gate. At least clear it with something that's going to regenerate back over time.
Yeah.
W7M are going for a bit more of a direct approach here regarding that meeting hatch. And the Flores drones as well, which isn't something we got to see a great deal of from INTZ. It's something that they're going to try and employ here. And Panico's actually only got one left. He's going to jump into that last one right now. But from what we could see, the shield was still standing inside of the doorway there. We just get to see it taken on out. But still a bit of an approach has to be made here. GDN almost going to get himself caught out there, but Mav comes away with the first couple of kills. He's got himself into the bunker now, and he's looking to cause a little bit of havoc. VNX, I think he's maybe barking up the wrong tree there. There is no push coming through Freezer. Everybody on the side of W7M is firmly interested in this rear side, in this bunker push. Guy going to start to get the plant down on the threshold. Drunk's just going to threaten the C4 there. He's not even going to throw it. That just puts so much pressure now onto Guy. Now the C4 gets threatened yet again, and Drunk's, he's going to be forced to go for it. It doesn't land. It gets shot out midair, and the plant is going to be successful. VNX now looks to move through. He's been chilling out inside of the freezer. He's going to swing and find himself something onto Herds. Panico looking to provide a bit of cover from Laundry as well. The plant location is well known now. Drunk's looking to approach on through, but he has to play a little bit more aggressive than this and maybe take advantage while VNX is being dealt with. You got a glimpse there of Guy inside of the freezer. He's got a chance there to kill onto Mav. He's actually going to down Mav in the process. He's only got 7 seconds or so to start getting onto this defuse. The time was running out. It was a great attempt, but it wasn't going to be enough. W7M, a nice planting around.
Yeah, there was definitely some times in that round where it just seemed like INTZ were a little bit overzealous, particularly where we saw the way that the main stairs were being played, or the tower stairs were being played. You didn't really need to creep up the stairs at that point, in my opinion, because as soon as you risk losing control of Pillar, it just gives W7M so much space that they can work with. And actually the position in which they planted really was enabled by the fact that they knew that that entire side of the site was safe, or that entire side of the map was safe. So I would like to see INTZ just kind of discipline themselves a little bit more going into this next round, and not look for fights that aren't necessary, because that was a real problem for them in that one.
INTZ have got a couple of rounds to play with here, and we're maybe going to see them playing in that fashion, but as we've seen too many times inside of BR6 and in Siege in general, it doesn't take much for a round lead to start to slip, especially if W7M are able to hype themselves up sufficiently to start to overcome that that round difference and really start to make a game of things. So I think for INTZ, it's going to be alright to try and play a little bit aggressively there, maybe get caught out of position, but it's probably not a pattern or a habit that they want to be getting into too firmly. So we'll see how INTZ choose to approach this one. It looks as though they're going for a very sort of utility soak-esque meta with the Jaeger and the Aruni. The laser gates are going to cause quite a lot of trouble, as they did in the previous round. We saw things like Gemini's being used to remove said laser gates. I imagine to see very similar things like that again. And aside from that, you've got the classic anchor play in the double SAS, couple of SMGs. W7M are going to start to make their approach now. Herds has got himself in through Armory, and Panico maybe going to try and make something happen through the attic side.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it is that W7M are going to employ this Flores, because, well, I mean, we saw INTZ do it a couple of times. If W7M can do it quite as well. There is this presence downstairs that maybe W7M are going to have to be aware of. Zach being one of those players. Drunks as well, but actually takes a ton of damage. He's going to have to run for his life. Gives the call, and Zach can punish Herd. So luckily, INTZ didn't lose anybody, but that was definitely a sweaty palms situation.
It's close stuff. You don't want to be trying to outrun somebody that's shooting at you. That's usually only going to ever end one way. It was very fortunate that the doorway was where it was for Drunks to sneak himself on down. But good teamwork with Zach there. He was very quick to move and quick to get into position to get that off. Essentially, you could call that a trade, because if Drunks dies there, it would still be a trade. So you would kind of play that you expect to see from your roamers, really backing each other up there. And still, there is a presence downstairs here from INTZ. Got a couple of C4s to work with, one left in the hands of Hornetow. But it's going to be Zach that's still looking to play downstairs. Now, my only fear with that is that push up white stairs can often end one way when you've got attackers that have already established themselves into games, for example. But INTZ are really holding back on this defense and really taking advantage of the fact that nobody on the side of W7M has opted to play that big window. Push is coming through very flat from that east side. And that means that INTZ can just turn their attention toward games, towards Attic. And at the moment, they're not having to worry about what's going on regarding the big window. There will be a bit of utility coming on through now as the stuns do enter. Nades as well, smokes to cut off the line of sight, and GDN to try and get this plant down. Toxic Babe canisters have gone out, but they are not going to be sufficiently placed. You're going to find one onto Vitz, but not before Vitz shuts down the plant from happening. Drunks has been downed in the process, but the kills keep coming through. Zach, he's made a big impact here. He's been able to move through, find himself one before being traded. Hornetow in with the final couple. Player that's had a pop-off game so far and is looking to make a bit of a habit and a bit of a theme of it.
It was a brave attempt from W7M, but they hadn't really cleared anybody out from INTZ, so it's entirely unsurprising when all of this utility and aggression came out from INTZ once they started planting, particularly those Toxic Babe canisters. You also had gunfire basically coming in from all of these different angles because W7M didn't have control of them. And while I kind of like the position that they'd taken in the closet and used those little Hibana pellet holes to hold direct lines of sight onto where GDM was and basically give overwatch, it's not like they really had control of, for example, something like Big Window. And I think that was something that you noted, Ollie, is it just wasn't a huge priority for them, I suppose, in that round. So it meant that INTZ could work quite a bit from where they were in dormitories. So now INTZ have found themselves on map point, and they're going to be heading back downstairs because, of course, they lost this first round against W7M. And it was, I guess, kind of close in a way because it just came down to a couple of people left on the board. But INTZ's over-aggression, I think, really let them down in the early to mid-round. And they could potentially change their fate in this one if they hold that in a bit more.
I think there's opportunity here for INTZ, as you say, to temper that aggression somewhat. Not quite go as ham in the early part of the round, particularly looking toward whoever it is that's going to be playing rear stairs. We'll see if they can keep themselves alive for a tad longer. INTZ haven't brought the Aruni this time. They haven't got the laser gate. It was something that slowed W7M down previously. Instead, they've opted for a slightly different composition. Opting to bring a couple more, well, another C4, I would guess, and Drunks playing on the mirror. So we'll see if it has a significant impact here, if it slows W7M down more than, if it doesn't slow W7M down enough. They might have a bit more time in the later part of that round to be looking at working and executing with.
W7M have decided to bring along a Nomad as well, try and hold back some of the rotations that could be made by INTZ. I wonder if they're gonna try and use those on either the staircases to prevent INTZ's attempts at over-aggression, or even down into the site itself, because INTZ haven't necessarily had particularly, big roams or anything going on upstairs. So I'm curious to see where the air jabs are going to be deployed. Oh.
Well, there is your answer, Joe.
Really
right.
Go where he wanted it to go.
Right on the corner.
Cool. He did have to use the second one to go up at the top of the freezer stairs, but you can't pick up an air jab once you've already placed it down. So that's two of them that have already been used.
I think Panico found that out there because he did sort of look at it, and you can just imagine him sort of just mashing F, just trying to make something happen there.
Yeah.
But it's never been a thing, unfortunately. I think the sort of sticky goo that it goes out with.
It expands, right?
It's the expanding foam. Yeah, you can't get that stuff back in the can. It really doesn't work that way. But it's going to do a job at least, and if INTZ do try and get themselves out for a little bit of a flank, hopefully for W7M it'll have an effect and at least won't get taken on out. It could be a nice little debate, you know, if you think that that's the one that's beeping on the corner and then you still move through and it yoinks across the room. It may still have the desired effect, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's going to come into it. INTZ are fairly well fortified in their positions. We're going to see Zach see a bit of pressure onto his deployable shield, just enough for him to back on out. Still a pocket reinforcement, so chance for it to get put back on up, but I'm not sure if we're going to get to that point, especially with the way that Herds is storming his way through. We're going to see Mav get picked up there as well. Drunks, he's got a chance at a bit of aggression here. He could look to try and push on through, and he will do so, but he's not going to be successful. Well, look at W7M there, just coming away with every single gunfight.
I have some questions about what INTZ were doing there. Why was Zach on elbow and Vitz in pillar? Why are you putting your smoke on the tower stairs but having your Jaeger over an elbow? To me, that doesn't really make that much sense. Because even if you're disregarding the idea of having Jaeger and elbow and being like, oh, well, it's a personal choice, you still don't really want your smoke to be in the position that he could risk being taken down relatively early in the round, because then your Toxic Babe canisters are gone. So actually, when W7M went in and they kind of brute forced their way through, Vitz was one of the first players to go down. So who's going to stop you from moving into the site? Literally no one, because your smoke has just been taken off. For me, that is just a very strange place to choose to play your smoke. Because even though it was Vitz who was playing in pillar last time, he wasn't playing on smoke that time. So it made more sense to have him there. In that case, there's a bit of a question mark for me.
I think INTZ, I'm not sure how they got caught out of position like that. They obviously got to the point of no return where they couldn't just switch places. But you got to wonder how it actually gets to that point. The W7M are able to come away with another successful round downstairs in Laundry, which, I mean, it should really be the hardest one to attack onto for all intents and purposes. But fortunately for INTZ, they have elsewhere to go. Statistically, INTZ don't do very well downstairs in Laundry, and I'm not sure why that is, but they really don't have the best win rate down there, so maybe something for them to look at. But for the meantime, we are going to be looking at a different site, and another opportunity here for INTZ to get it over the line.
We will see. Sorry for the long pause. I stepped on my headphone cable and managed to pull it out. So
Nice.
that was great.
It's just that horrible moment where you don't know if I'm still talking.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I was, you know, we're fine. It's just little technical difficulties. It happens. Anyway, yeah, so it's going to be dining and kitchen. As you were saying, they statistically find Laundry a bit troublesome, which makes you wonder why they decided to go back there. But I don't know. I suppose regardless, we move on. W7M are going in for the roam clear, which proving to be a good idea, given that there are indeed roamers upstairs. Although it looks like maybe one looking to go back down the white stairs. Zach is still up here. Exothermic charge is actually going to be expended on that upstairs wall to try and move through. Now, of course, it is quite important if there are defenders up here to gain control of this space, because you want to have control of the hatch. Hurt's getting 2 kills.
Look at him go, like... I tell you what, Hurts is one of those players that when he turns it on, and particularly when he gets himself onto Zafir, he really just starts to cause a lot of trouble. That's pretty much the roam game dealt with. And I think W7M have got plenty of time to work with it. They've got a minute to start making these vertical angles, start to try and pressure on into the site. There's the hatch to work with as well, don't forget. Hornetow, an ever-present threat. Along with Drunks, able to put a couple of chip damage shots in, but Still just struggling to find a pocket of safety inside of the site. It's a strange position, really, that the defenders find themselves in here, because they know at some point that there's going to be some sort of a push that materializes on their level, but for the meantime, they're just getting chipped away vertically. Glasses can be activated now, and Drunks can sit himself pretty much safely underneath that hatch. But nobody initially going to be giving the game away. Mav going to start to cook a nade, and it's like it's got Drunks' name written all over it, and it certainly did. The drop now can come through. Vitz in a bit of a tough spot. I'm surprised to see so many players from W7M committing here to the site, as all it takes is one kill like that for it all to be thrown into disarray. We're actually going to see both players drop here. A plan being forced, but Herds with the pre-fire, keeping his team in it for one more round.
Oh, and with just 2 seconds to go, that's gut-wrenching for INTZ, but excellent for W7M. They really had the right idea about prioritizing that upstairs control. Even though it took a ton of time, you know, they brought down a number of players of INTZ from that position. So not necessarily the, I suppose, most standard way to go about attacking onto that site, because even if you want to be killing whichever defender is up in kids' dorms, usually you only send like 1 or 2 guys, but they actually had such a majority of their attack go on up there. And it was really all of they needed. It kind of put INTZ into this strange position where, you know, this entire defense that you set up, generally expecting the attackers to be coming in through small tower, is sort of nullified. You know, and it was great that we had someone who could sit with the warden glasses, but really, there's not much you can do on your own from there. And INTZ nearly stole that one away. But not quite. And now, again, they are going back down into the basement. And this is also peculiar to me because the upstairs site is available to them now. And it's actually the only site that INTZ have successfully defended.
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point what INTZ's thought process is, especially with the lineup that they're bringing. These guys haven't even got a Jaeger. They're defending downstairs without a Jaeger. They've got hatches open. This is sort of catch me if you can sort of stuff. This is, we're going to be out here on the roam, and you've got to try and bring the fight to us, and we're going to burn a lot of time. We've picked our favorite weapons, and we're just going to try and have a bit of a fight out here, and I guess it kind of maybe leaves poor old Drunks on the site. Now, it's not quite as dramatic as that. There are going to be a couple of players on the periphery of the site, but on the most part, it's going to be an aggressive hold that's being attempted here. You look at Hornetow inside of the attic. He's got not only the hatch open inside of attic, but the hatch open inside of electrical, so he can drop all the way back through into site if required. There's plenty of reinforcements up there that are going to be supporting him in holding that area. It could be good here. And as I say that, he's going to pick himself up, Herds. Probably the best opening kill that he could have gotten here.
Yeah, I would argue that that was maybe the most valuable one that was available to INTZ for the taking. And to get him off the board nice and early certainly takes away a lot of that fragging power that W7M have been relying upon over the course of the last few rounds. Hanako going for a cheeky look. Mav all the way downstairs. So W7M are really spreading themselves out over the course of the map. Nades to be sent in. No one dying yet, though. Now, because you got the Prisma and the shield here in Pillar, Vitz has got a bit more protection. Hopefully that means he's not going to walk up the stairs and get himself killed.
I mean, hopefully just because there are players out there on the roam, they're not going to see that sort of aggressive play. Vitz is going to make a nitro cell land as he is now going to look to try and make his way on up, but the Prisma is going to give him a little bit of information. What a swing on to GDN. He's now got live information as the player pushing down these rear stairs. Just needs to bide his time here. Vitz is in a position to do absolutely everything here. Mavi's going to find one, but he eventually gets taken down as well as the final two come in from Zach's fair hand. INTZ, they get this one over the line against W7M.
It took them a while to finally get a win onto Laundry, but I suppose going for a more extreme change of your operator lineup was all that it required. A really important game for both of these two teams, not because of anything it may qualify them for, but because of the precedent that it sets going forward into Stage 3. Both of them have been sitting very low in our league table and are looking to swim as far away from that bottom spot as possible. And, well, with the outcome of this game, that's going to be possible for INTZ, but W7M are still going to be sat right at the bottom.
Yeah, still a bit of work to do there for W7M. I think you can see that reflected there in the glimpse of the cameras that we got to see at the end. But as far as things go for the side of INTZ, they can be very happy with their performance there tonight. They made a good adaptation, and I think, honestly, Gio, they really leaned into their strengths in that final round. We saw Hornetau get upstairs into the attic, and he was just like, yep, this is where I'm now going to play. I'm a player that has been getting really good kills, getting really good gunfights over the past couple of weeks, and that's what we're going to try and use here. Everyone pick your favorite gun, pick your favorite op, and we're just going to go on in there, and we're going to try and have a good time. We're not going to worry too much about the strategy. We'll just let that happen, and that's exactly what INTZ were able to do there. We're going to bring Riley back in here. We're going to have a bit of a further conversation about that one, and of course, we've got loads more games coming up. Interesting
to see that INTZ did look quite comfortable in the opening rounds there. Before, I don't know, not quite dropping the ball, but definitely were meaningfully challenged by W7M. It took a while, for as you say, for INTZ to seal the deal. But they got across the line by playing just, as Ollie says, decent siege. Gio, this win, obviously, for INTZ is not going to be an earth-shaking monumental thing, but they can walk away from it feeling pretty satisfied with themselves, I'd say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This was what they needed to do, and it puts them in a much better spot for what's to come in Stage 3. If they're really fighting for the middle of the pack here, let's be real, I don't think realistically INTZ are going to find themselves at the very top of the leaderboard by the end of Stage 3, but middle of the pack could be a very viable outcome for them, especially after finishing Stage 2 like this.
Let's talk about W7M, Ollie, here, and what they've got to take away from this. Obviously, this is a team that is struggling for form a little bit now. They're done now for Stage 2. We move on to Stage 3. They're going to play in the Copa do Brasil, but of course not in the LATAM League final. So what's the next step for W7M in terms of moving on to the next stage?
Well, I'm just going to focus on their own siege. You know, they've seen a couple of roster changes moving into this stage. We weren't expecting them to make, significant waves with those roster changes in terms of the standings, just because of the fact that it is cumulative. It's going to be very difficult for them to make any sort of significant movement. They were only able to get 7 points inside of Stage 1. They've done the same again here inside of Stage 2, but it's felt a little bit better. But then again, you kind of get the impression that the competition has stepped up since we've got into Stage 2. So W7M, it again is just about developing that coordination and working with those new players that they've brought on to build something a little bit better.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. They're a younger side, they're a newer side, and they've still got a lot of work ahead of them. But look, we look forward to seeing how they go, and we also look forward now to chatting with JP from our Victoria's team here from INTZ joining us to have a bit of a chat. Good to have JP joining us here. Thank you so much for your time, mate. Congratulations on the win. Took a little while for you to get across the line there after an early start. Talk us through those later rounds. W7M certainly gave you a run for your money.
Yeah, actually, we are expecting to play Oregon and all things that happen in the game. And one thing that we know that we're facing, that they were trying to counter us. So it's might what happened when we defend. And when we saw that they're counting us, we just try something new, an advanced defense on the laundry, and it worked.
JP, you said yesterday that today was going to be a really important game for you guys just because of wanting to push yourself away from the bottom of the league table. What do you think this sets you up for going into Stage 3?
It's still not a comfortable position, actually, but we are trying to do a better preparation for Stage 3 to get at least 15 points. So get at least trying to get to Elite 6. It's our goal to the Stage 3, Elite 6, not playing to not be relegated. And that's it, basically.
JB, how have you found Zach? You've obviously had a full stage now to play with Zach inside of the sort of newly formed INTZ roster, him obviously coming in replacement for Duds. How have you guys found working together? Because from the way that we've been seeing it from the outside looking in, it's looked as though he's provided a good impact as a good entry fragger.
Yeah, not just for the impact of his game, but he's a very communicative player, different of Duds. So acho que probably it's the bigger difference between them. He's a more communicative player, and it's based the big difference between them. That's just don't talk too much. He talks, helps Vitz and Drunks. That's the other two players who talk a lot in our team.
Well, mate, it's good to hear that you're really in a reflective and also quite driven state of mind as a team. Looking forward to seeing your performance in Stage 3. Thanks for finding the time to join us today, and best of luck in the future.
Goodbye, guys.
I for the second time here, I'm impressed by the attitude that this team has here. Really, very realistic, quite grounded. To hear them talking about what they want, not only out of in the short term, but also looking forward now into Stage 3, talking about setting their sights on the LATAM League finals after Stage 3. They're really, really heartening stuff. So good on INTZ for picking up a couple of wins throughout this weekend. Anyway, that is that for our coverage of the second match. Match number 3 coming your way after a short break. So don't go anywhere. Plenty more Rainbow Six Siege coming up after this.